We often equate our worth, our value as individuals, our importance as human beings, our significance, whether as individuals, as persons, but also the work that we do, the things that we have done, the things we've accomplished, by how they land on the people around us, especially how the people around us, those that we hold close to our hearts, in their significance, in their importance in our lives, be it friends, family, significant others, etc., society, how our assets, as I said, the personhood, the things we achieve, etc., how those around us are responding or reacting to. This is very important when it comes to family members. This is very important to situations where the impact of your work leaves, of your work or assets I mentioned, but also your behavior. It could be a work environment, it could be a school environment, academic environment, it could be a family environment, where your behavior or who you are as a person or the actions that you're involved in doing, projects, this and that, or in sports even, where you're achieving certain milestones, certain achievements that were, well, not achieved by you. They were too difficult by you or even by others, but you did. So how did that impact the world around you? We turn to look. This is very important for us to feel connected and also to be feeling appreciated by the world, which drives us to do more things, to grow. This is a very important aspect of being social beings, of us as individuals or individual parts of society, starting with the family, your friends, friendship circle, etc. So who you are turning out to be, who you and what you are doing in life, the things that you're accomplishing, the challenges you're overcoming, fears that you're overcoming, certain toxic behaviors that you relinquished, you've given up when others cannot, or something more extrinsic, something more tangible, observable, such as obtaining something that was so hard for you to obtain. It could be something material like possessions or a house or a thing or physical transformation. You did it. Naturally, you will look and to see, you look at those individuals that are important to you or were important to you, and you want to see their reactions. Not just that, but you're also looking to hear some celebratory sounds from them, remarks from them. Something that they celebrate, just like you are celebrating, but you don't know if this is strong enough. So here is where when we are using the reactions or responses from others as a gauge to look at the very value of the thing that we accomplished. This is dangerous. This can be dangerous. Let me rephrase that. Because the key factor here is to look carefully at those individuals whose opinions are very important to you. And this can become dangerous when those individuals do not celebrate something that was worth celebrating in you because of what you've done. So the good individuals around you will celebrate without you prompting anything, without you even asking. They will notice from afar if they are really genuinely interested in your welfare, if they are really loving and caring and wanting, therefore, the best for you. The little that you do in life becomes big in their eyes. And that's how you know that you have individuals who are worth keeping. Now, of course, there are settings where you're stuck with them, such as family members or relatives, blood relations, and also work environment, which is less constraining because ultimately you can get up and leave and get another job and get another circle of friends, or even in school environments, let's say. Those are much more temporary. You don't have to withstand that too long, as the case would be with family, where you can't necessarily, cut them off so easily, because guilt, this and that. But even that is possible because ultimately you have to look at the person's presence in your life. Is it toxic or not? I mentioned before how few criteria are necessary to know if a person loves you. They have to be able to say, I'm sorry, when they do something that's hurtful. It shouldn't come as a big, big, big deal for them to say. In fact, it should be very easy. The other one is they have to say thank you to you. If for anything, just for the fact that you are alive and you are related to them. This is another very key factor. To be there in the traits, qualities, characteristics of someone who is deserving to be called close to you. And blood isn't necessarily closeness. That's a misnomer. That's a totally different, wrong, actually, interpretation. When they say blood is thicker than water, that's not the appropriate, that's not the right setting, right interpretation, in fact. People who know literature, they would tell you that it's completely misused. And the third quality that has to be there in a person who calls themselves close to you, intimately close to you, relative to you, blood relation to you, a friend, etc. Anybody who you keep close to you have to celebrate you. So they have to say, I'm sorry, when the time comes when they've done something, or they've ignored your feelings, they've ignored your importance, they've harmed you, they've embarrassed you, anything like that where it caused you pain. Even if it didn't, but they have to realize that that action could have been painful, even that deserves an I'm sorry from them. So there isn't conceit that says, well, they're younger than me, or no, they didn't do that. No, it doesn't matter. Second is to say thank you for the things you've done for them. There's no hiding the importance of you. And thirdly, they have to celebrate you and your achievements. Even if it has nothing to do with them. In a sense, it doesn't benefit them as such on the surface. Just the fact that you have accomplished some things. They have to come forward and they have to, out of the blue, they have to reach out to you. Not to ask you for something and then use that as a platform, as a sweetener, as a, sandwich that in there, and then ask you for things. No, that's very evil, I think. Dishonest. So they have to celebrate you as well. So this is where the moment comes where people start questioning when they do not get these three. And most people do not get that. And this has caused many an individual to come and knock at the therapist's door, finally, after decades of being in pain and questioning their existence, questioning their pain, questioning why are they not happy? Why do they constantly have to achieve? Why? And still not get anywhere as far as a sense of completion, a sense of fulfillment is concerned. Because of the individuals around us. So, check who's around you. Because it's not just friends that surround us, it's also enemies. So we have to distinguish who's who. Simply because you have people around you does not mean they are your friends or they want the best for you. Chances are, there are cases where the people around you are not the best for you. So this is where your focus has to be directed by honesty, truthfulness, seeing things as they are. But we are deluded. We have what the Buddha calls vipallasas, these distortions, corruptions in the mind. Remember, feelings are very important to us. How we feel is very important, despite the fact that, the fact that it's saying something opposite. So if a person comes forward and says some things, we are looking at what I am feeling from your words, from your behavior, from your action. The person might give you something and you're like, wow, thank you, this and that, but someone else observing it, someone else who knows your life and your relationship, the dynamics that went on between you and that person and that action, they might say, be careful, they did this to you last week or this and that. They never acknowledged it, they never said I'm sorry, but now here they are promoting you, or they are doing something. In English there's that saying, well, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Which means, hold on to your horses, hold on to your, tighten your seatbelt, because something's going to come up. Why? Because there's a lack in honesty. The person did not approach you by doing what needs to be done first. And this is something that I've seen in families a lot. To maintain what we call in clinical circles, establishing or maintaining homeostasis. Which means, oh, come on, let's just water under the bridge, let's ignore, let's not talk about that. Oh, let's forgive and forget. Okay. A wiser person will ask, hold on, how often has this repeated itself? Will we forgive and forget, right? And then something even bigger happens. And then you guys come and you tell me that it's okay, let's move on. Come on. It's time for you to be the bigger person and just let's move on. Meanwhile, nobody acknowledged their mistakes. Nobody said, basically, I'm sorry. Nobody approached you and said, wow, I'm so grateful to have you in my life. I celebrate the things that you've done. Most people would not have been able to achieve that. And thank you. Just thank you for being part of my life. None of those things were addressed. So this is then an area where people become afraid of the consequences of following the path of honesty. Such as, if these people are being that way towards me, and they are close to me, they are my colleagues, they are my family, my siblings, my parents, my relatives, my neighbors. So basically, when push comes to shove, these people are nowhere to be found. They show up when it serves their purpose, their objective. Is that normal? So if you've been raised in a way where you look at yourself as the problem, you look at your own self and your own transformations, your own development, and despite them, let's say, being massive, where you have other individuals who come and say, and look at you briefly and say, wow, what you've done is tremendous. Wow. And those who were next to you when you were transforming yourself, you were undergoing such a huge change, you were accomplishing those things, and they never said a word. It's time for you to unload. It's time for you to clip away those individuals because they are toxic. This is what I mean by it's difficult for many people. Why? Because we like to sustain that those types of injurious or damaging, unwholesome, unskillful, harmful presences from our lives. Many people aren't willing to do that. They are willing to undergo more pain, more suffering, instead of getting rid of the causes of that suffering, the sources of that pain. So it could be maintaining moments. That's why many people who come together, they have nothing to talk about from the present moment. They will talk about the past. Oh, do you remember this? Or do you remember that? Do you remember this? This is what... Some common denominator that could establish a bridge of communication between you two, even though honesty is nowhere to be found. Because this would be like avoiding completely the elephant in the room. You hurt me, you know. That is a very direct access to reality. So we have to look at our own contribution in allowing certain individuals in our lives. You know, from the fairy tales that we grew up listening to, hearing, such as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's very, you know, as a child you're thinking, it's very clear, good and bad, good and evil, you know that, okay? And you can hold a very clear position towards that. You don't like evil, that witch who shows up and she transforms herself and becomes an ugly little or old woman and she walks towards the hut where Snow White was staying, and she was alone, and she comes by and she has a lovely, lovely apple to give to Snow White for her to bite, because it's poisonous. It's going to put her to sleep, or it's going to, you know, it's going to kill her. We never ask, why a delicious looking, beautiful apple? Because people who want to take advantage of us, people who want to keep us close to their lives so that maybe they have, you know, not maybe, but they do have some benefit for them. But we do not know yet what it is. And sometimes you will never know, so long as you're close to them. You're staying in their vicinity of their interactions, in their gatherings, etc., where you will not get a clear eagle's eye view of what's going on. You will see it once you detach yourself from them, physically, socially, you name it. And then you look back, and you turn your gaze and you look back, and then so many things become clear. You will get a topographical map of what was going on, a bird's eye view of what was really going on. And things that were not clear to you suddenly become clear, and you feel like, oh, that's why that's why. Oh, I can't believe I allowed them to do this or that. Now remember the apple, the delicious looking, juicy, without a single spot on it, without a single dent on it. Well, if you notice, nobody approaches you with a rotten apple to deceive you, right? The witch approaches you with fresh looking, delicious looking, beautiful apple. Nobody deceives you with a rotten apple. You're not going to touch it. So people will approach you, situations will present themselves with delicious apples. Watch out for them. So what is important is not the apple, but how you feel about the whole interaction. This is where we have to question what's going on. And one of the best sources for us to know what's really going on is to check in the body, to check in with the body. Because the body, the heart rate, will tell you a lot. And here is where our expectations come in and ruin it for us, blind us from seeing things as they are. Earlier I mentioned vipallasas in Buddha's teachings. Vipallasas are, well, looking at what is ugly and expecting it to be beautiful and pretty. Looking at what is painful and really painful and expecting it to be somehow transformed into something that is causing happiness, that is happy. Something that is suffering based. We expect it to be happiness giving. You see the distortions. You look at something that is bound, that is changing, and you expect it to be permanent. You look at something that, well, all things conditioned, they do not have an essence. An essence, as in a singular, independent, non-changing thingness about them, uniqueness about them that is permanent. But there's nothing like that in our day-to-day living experiences. There's nothing like that in the universe. But this is where it becomes a fairy tale. We become participants in that fairy tale of Snow White. And we start thinking in such simplistic terms of life, and we ignore the fact that here is a witch trying to give me something. Why? Why me out of this whole forest? Plus, last I know, there's no houses here, no huts. Why did this person show up at my door now when there's nobody else in the house, giving me this wonderful thing and trying to convince me to take it? So look around your life. Look for those old, metaphorically, ugly witches, wizards, those people that do not show up for nothing. But the perpetuation of the tendency to keep going to the door, to open it for them, that is the main, issue here, because you're the one who's opening the door for these people to come in to rip you apart, to make you stay in unhappiness. So this has everything to do with you taking ownership to see, at least, the reality of things, to see things as they are. Am I really trying to turn this frog into a prince? Okay? When this person has given every indication in the book, pretty much, that says they are unreliable. Every time push comes to shove, this person is nowhere to be found. This person asks for money, for example, but they never, ever pay it back. But there's always an excuse, always an excuse. This person never acknowledges their mistakes, okay? And then later on they come in and they say, yeah, but this happened, that happened, please, let's move on. Part of you says, well, it's okay, let me not sacrifice decades-long relationship here simply because of my insistence that first they have to apologize. No, that's not necessarily going to be conceit on your part to demand that. It's just basic decency. The person doesn't have that. And remember, if all else fails, you can always try this formula in your mind. Ask yourself, if I were in their shoes, would I do the same thing as they are doing to me now? Let's say they did something wrong and they approached you. Okay, if you were in their shoes and you're approaching someone, a friend, or trying to revive a relationship, or trying to be given trust again, etc., whatever the situation, would you then still hesitate, knowing for a full fact that you did something wrong, would you still hesitate to say, I'm sorry? Chances are, if you're being honest, you're going to say, no, why should I hesitate? I'm here, I'm approaching that person. Why am I approaching if I'm not being honest? So I am honest, so I have to be completely open and forward with them and say, yes, that was stupid of me to have done that to you. I'm sorry. But the very fact that the person is holding back says a lot. This is where you will always apply trust the behavior, never the words. And there's a lot of people in our lives who fail miserably when it comes to the behavior department. They have words and words and words, such as, well, I appreciate you, I love you, this and that, but you have to look for it in their action, in their behavior. So even if a person says, I'm sorry, check, ask them. It's not being haughty, or it's not being you domineering, or in some way being unfair. And ask, no, it's your right to ask, oh, could you tell me, why are you sorry? I need to know. Which part of it? And if they kind of dismiss it, hey, I just said I'm sorry, let's move. No. That's a disaster waiting to happen again. So you have this life, then you have to protect yourself. So simply because you're born within a certain environment, certain community, certain family, does not give anybody the right to abuse you. And abuse comes in different ways. The worst kind of abuse is not the physical, actually. People are shocked when they hear me say that. Real abuse is the emotional one, psychological abuse, that is not going to leave any physical marks as physical abuse does. And this is why the society does not appreciate or hold very significant the abuse that people give each other in couples relationships and family relationships especially. No, you have to protect yourself from those as well, especially those. So check to see who's giving you really the juicy looking apple. Because nobody's going to come to deceive you with a rotten apple. Sukhiyoto.